Вложувањето во криптовалути во Македонија е забрането, како што неодамна соопшти Народната банка на Република Македонија. Но какво е европското искуство во тргувањето со дигиталните валути се само дел од прашањата на кои ќе разговараме со нашиот гостин, доктор Гаучи, предавач на Универзитетот во Малта по електронски комуникации. Mr. Гаучи, welcome. When we speak about cryptocurrencies, when they started, many people said that this is a trend or this is a fraud or maybe a Ponzi scheme. But today even the banks are starting to work with the Bitcoin. Are the cryptocurrencies a strong part of the future markets and everyday lives?
Yeah, I thank you for having me. Okay, so very interesting question. But let us, before I delve into the question, explain what a cryptocurrency is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. Yes, Bitcoin is a form of cryptocurrency, but cryptocurrency falls into a wider basket, okay? Cryptocurrencies falls into a basket of what we call virtual money, okay? Virtual money is, to a certain extent, a software code, okay? It's something abstract. Mm-hmm. It's something virtual. Virtual, which at the end of the day, it carries money. It carries a certain value, and it can transact from one person to the other, from one entity to another. So from a person to a bank to a person to a person, okay? And a person to an authority as well. As a matter of fact, yesterday, Switzerland as well announced that it's going to accept Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, okay, for people to pay taxes. Now, what is the difference between a cryptocurrency and a virtual currency to a certain extent? Or why is it called cryptocurrency? A cryptocurrency is called cryptocurrency because of its encryption code embedded in it, okay? So that is why Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. But you can have other flavors of currencies which per se could not be crypto, okay? Like, for example, you only have coins, digital coins, tokens, okay? So there are different flavors. This is something which has hit the industry, and it has hit it on a very widespread basis. Yes, there's been a lot of hype which was perceivable from the normal users, from the industry, different facets of the industry, because you have banks, you have insurances, you have people who are resellers, you have payment gateways, governments then, authorities. And there were certain issues because all of a sudden you see a very big monster which shook the current system of how we used to think, of how we used to transact. And it shook as well the existing framework which you have, because if you have a legal framework, you know what rights, what obligations there are. So that was one of the problems with cryptocurrency. And then you had people as well who started abusing because of that. They started abusing when you mentioned before Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme is more related to what we call an ICO, okay? International Coin Offering, okay? Or an ITO, which is a token offering, where you have companies which try to raise capital, okay, through this scheme. And usually, predominantly, a use of cryptocurrency or a token is made to raise these funds. And there were a lot of these funds which are sort of Ponzi schemes. But to answer your question, yeah, it is a hype, but that hype is going to be, it is there and it's going to be there. It's going to be an intrinsic part of our digital economy, whether we like it or not. The major, I think, trust behind that is that it is going to radicalize completely the way we perceive society and the way we perceive as well our economy. And that on its own will also change even the fabric of the legal thinking behind certain activities. But cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, cannot exist, cannot subsist, okay, without a very fundamental platform, which is blockchain. Now, blockchain is completely different from Bitcoin. Blockchain originates from Bitcoin, okay? Blockchain is the platform on which Bitcoin is mined, on which Bitcoin originates, on which people transact when they use Bitcoin, okay? But it's different.
So what is the main difference between Bitcoin and blockchain?
So let me give you an example. Whereas before you had a person who wants to buy a computer, he's dealing with Amazon, okay? And he wants to take the money from the bank. You have a lot of activities and you have an intermediary. Usually it's the bank and the payment processor. In a totally decentralized environment, okay, and let's say that they use Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. Okay. You'll have the person dealing directly with Amazon in this case. The bank will not be involved and it's a peer-to-peer transaction. So there's no intermediation. And that carries a lot of advantages. Why does it carry a lot of advantages? Because at the end of the day, if you remove the middleman, the transaction costs less. It's more efficient and it's more immediate. You don't need to wait 5 days, okay, 4 days, 3 days for the money to be cleared. So that's more immediate. So here we're creating an economy which is more fast, more immediate, where there is more personal relationship, where at the end of the day, that economy is totally decentralized and it is empowering the user. So it is the user who controls all the activity and he does not need any intermediation. Now, to be frank, this will revolutionize the whole ethos of how we live, and it is still in a very early stage, nascent stage. So there's a lot of thinking right now on how this could work on a large scale, scalability, security, which is very important, okay? But this thinking is being married by a lot of industry. You mentioned before as well, you have banks, you have the IBM, Microsoft. When you see the industry investing so much in R&D, having their own pilot project, patenting as well, okay, seeing as well all the benefits, because everything carries benefits and it carries a negative side to it. But at the end of the day, if the benefits outweigh the negative, and if you look at that on a forward-looking approach, it's like the internet. When we had the internet before, when the internet started, it was used for the military.
So how much time do we need to put this into some legal frame?
I would say that here we have to distinguish cryptocurrency, okay? So virtual money. Let's leave that aside because a lot of countries are looking into whether they regulate it, whether they juxtapose, they put, okay, the virtual currencies on what they currently have, okay? Whether they leave it a little bit be and see whether to regulate afterwards. So that's one thing. Blockchain is something a little bit different. Blockchain, in my humble view, I don't think there needs to be a specific legislation. I think standards are being studied right now. There's an international standards and it's an open standard and it will tie with other standards. For example, if you have security, if you have privacy, okay, certain elements of accountability. So it will tie with different standards. But I think it is a little bit too early to regulate blockchain per se. Or if they regulate it, it should be very light touch approach. It's the same thing as when you had a car in the early 19th century. Just imagine if you had to regulate the first car with carbon emission, seat belts. I think that we would not have the car industry as evolved as we have it today. So everything needs to be very gradual.
So when we speak about Macedonia, for example, when do we stand?
So as I said before, blockchain and even to a certain extent, this virtual money is going to revolutionize the world which we live in. And there's going to be digital economy. So in digital economy, you have a total transformation, okay? Now, let me explain a little bit on the transformation and how this might apply as well to the Balkans, and Macedonia is part of the Balkans. So in this digital transformation on a blockchain, you have what is called bit property, okay? As a matter of fact, you have bit nations like Estonia. Estonia is a bit nation now. So bit property entails, okay, that you have people with a digital identity. These people with a digital identity are part of the blockchain, okay? These people with a digital identity want to buy properties, want to buy assets. These assets have digital certificates and they are on the blockchain as well, okay? So the transaction, all the ecosystem will be on the blockchain. And if you remember what I told you before, Blockchain means totally decentralized. So all the whole ecosystem, our life, okay? If you want to go to a hospital, it's part of the blockchain, and there might be the Internet of Things. It's going to transact on this decentralized platform. So it's going to be a decentralized system of doing things. So there, even the way how you perceive value, what value do you want to get? Here, there might be differences. So there might be destabilizing factors. There might be jobs which might be redundant, but there might be other jobs which might come in handy for this new way of doing things. So there is a new value chain to tap. Macedonia needs to look at blockchain like a piece of paper. Very neat piece of paper. And I think this is the best way how to describe it. If you give a piece of paper, which is a neutral medium, to different people. So if you give it to a lawyer during a court case, he will scribble notes on the court case which he is following. If you give it to an artist, he will try to draw something on it. If you give it to a child, actually you can see as well how the child reacts. It's always the same piece of paper. If you give it to an accountant, he might do a spreadsheet, okay? So it is a neutral medium, but a neutral medium which can be interpreted, which can have a narrative, okay? Which is different depending on the particular sector of society, sector of the industry you want blockchain to apply to. So Macedonia needs to take this neutral approach, and it needs as well to see what other countries around it are doing. I mean, there's Poland, there's Estonia, there's Ukraine. Ukraine right now is doing as well voting. Estonia has moved tremendously. I mean, they have a bit nation. I say that Macedonia needs to do that. Why? Because this thing will hit Macedonia like it's going to hit the other countries in the world, respectively. It's not a question of if, but when. Because these things will happen. You cannot stop technology. Yes, you can delay it, but you cannot stop it. So it's very important because there is value to retain. But at the end of the day, the value goes beyond the local borders because Macedonia interacts with other countries. So if other countries are already adopting, okay, predisposed for a digital economy, Macedonia cannot step back. And I remember this country as well as being quite on the forefront of certain things. Even, for example, when thinking about Wi-Fi nation, I've been coming here several times on a Wi-Fi nation. I remember as well, 7-8 years ago, this country, I was actually part of a think tank here, looking at whether Macedonia could provide something innovative for the Balkans, a sort of remote gaming platform with remote gaming legislation for the Balkans. This was 7-8 years ago. Nothing has been done, but at least they were thinking about it. Now, if I look back 7-8 years ago, this country already had a notion, already had a concept, and 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Montenegro adopted the same thing, but in principle, and I think it's been quite successful, certain things must give way. So it's no longer think. You need to think, you need to study, but then you need to act upon those things. And I think Macedonia needs to do precisely that.